All right.
Here we go.
Welcome back to another episode of the Merge Feast. My name is Blake, joined with Logan and Brandon. What's up, guys?
What's going on?
How's it going?
Going well, going well. I want to switch things up this week, and I want to start off by hearing who you guys think is the survivor of the week. Um, I think we're going to get down to the last couple people, and we're all going to start to have the same person. So by not kind of talking about who we like and dislike throughout the episode and then all coming to the same conclusion, I kind of wonder if we're going to start off different. So Logan, kick us off. Who's your survivor of the week?
Survivor of the week for me is got to be Genevieve. I think with orchestrating the plan of Saul, even though it almost kind of fell through, but for her to be able to set that up, get the plan in motion, and be able to execute that, better her game. Yes, burn a bridge with Teeny, some of that things there, but to better her game in that situation, I think that there wasn't somebody else that it deserves it this week, in my opinion.
I like that pick. I thought, or I would pick Sam for my survivor of the week. I liked how he handled coming back from tribal council last week. Obviously, it was between Sam and Sierra, and Sam went home and kind of had a good attitude about it. He could have very easily come back and been annoyed, pissed off, whatever, but he understands the game and understands the thought process of why they did it. So, like, that stood out to Saul, I think. And I also liked how how he very subtly got Rachel to reveal the plans for voting Saul out.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it in a forceful way. He was just asking questions, and he even told her, like, you don't have to tell me yes or no. Is this happening? And then Rachel trusted him enough to actually tell him, and then we saw all the chaos break out. But so I liked Sam's kind of rebound week this week, and so that's why he's my survivor of the week.
No, that's definitely a good pick. I was gonna go with Genevieve as well, and the downside that you talked about, Logan, with her burning the bridge with Teeny, I don't actually know if that will necessarily burn that bridge because Teeny ended up voting for Saul as well. And
But I feel like she only voted for Saul to be with majority. Outside of that,
true,
she wouldn't have voted for him.
but I don't know that she knows that Genevieve was the one that orchestrated it all. With as much chaos that was going on,
Yeah,
everybody's going to come around and say, "Oh no, this person told me," and I don't think any one person is going to, or that many people are going to align where they all believe it was Genevieve's idea. Now, Genevieve can absolutely speak to that if she gets to the end and talk about how she orchestrated it, but I don't know that people realize that was all her. So that's for me. I think I think that's why she's my survivor of the week. But I liked her little comment there at the end where she was like, "Man, I can't believe that worked." And I mean, she's making big moves and getting away with them. And man, if she ends up winning, she may be the best player that we've seen in a long time strategically.
Yeah, I agree with that. Being able to navigate the game basically undetected for so long, and like I don't know anybody that's been able to do that, because nobody, similarly to Saul, like, nobody's looked at her. And I don't know, like, if it's because she's letting other people kind of take credit for the move, or she's just picking the right people to initially tell the move and letting them kind of spread it around. Like, I don't know how it's working, but it's working. And
I mean, because at the
I
beginning of the episode, Kyle was saying something along the lines of like, I don't see Genevieve as a social, strategic thinker, and I was like, hold up, like you clearly are missing something here. So for him to be there and not notice that, she's clearly doing something well.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
Either
Yeah,
that
'cause
or he just has no strategic mindset at all because he's always just, I'm just
he's
going to go along with whatever happens.
he's also been safe for 3
That's
votes
true.
in a row, so he really hasn't
It's
had to
true.
worry about who's doing
True.
what. So it could be a little bit of Kyle checked out and Genevieve just kind of disguising what she's doing really well.
Yeah.
The other, and this kind of segued in perfectly, but the other alliance that we started to see form and didn't really get to see much of it towards the end, and I don't know how they ended up aligning, but Rachel and Andy kind of having a little reunion there. And I had kind of forgotten about how much of a train wreck Andy was with Rachel the first go around and how uncomfortable she was with it all. I was curious what you guys thought of their little reunion there and if that'll last.
I mean, I think it's great for them to come back together, especially in the sense of both kind of on the outs, somewhat on the bottom. I mean, I think Rachel's a strong enough of a player, but her alliance has been kind of dwindled down. And I think if they could work together and get something to happen, could be great. But I just don't know if it will work out in the end.
The thing that I really like about this season, and I'm going kind of broad, even further than Andy and Rachel, but the thing I kind of like about this season is that like nobody's really closed the door on working with anybody. Like there's been like, hey, we haven't seen eye to eye, or we've even voted against each other, but now we're coming back and realizing that it would be in our best interest to probably get together here. And I like that because even back to Sam like immediately knowing full well that Andy turned around and was part of the Sierra vote, like in a way willing to work with him. So I like that.
Absolutely. And I like how different the players are, how some, what am I trying to say? How different some players are playing the game as far as like socially. Could on one extreme you get to see Sierra, who's in the jury, and she's incredibly bitter. Like walked in, didn't even look at them. When she found out that Caroline couldn't vote, she was like, "Oh, thank God." And I'm like, "Whoa, you are really bitter." And then you switch to Sam, who almost got voted out, totally blindsided, and he's like, "Yeah, it's part of the game." And I didn't quite believe him, but he said it enough, and his actions lined up. He's like, "I'm willing to work with people who were just voting against me." And then Saul gets voted out, and he was like, "Man, that was awesome! Like, great game, go get him! Heck yeah, Jeff, this was awesome!" And wasn't incredibly bitter like Sierra has been, or like Annika was when she left, or Tiana was the other one. There's just been a lot of bitter players, and it's nice to see two other players that don't really seem to take it that way.
Do you think with Saul he wasn't as bitter because he had a little birdie tell him that it could be happening and he was aware of it, to where the other people were completely blindsided, to where he kind of had a chance to prepare and like, okay, this could happen? And I mean, we've seen now throughout the entire season, Saul is the like chillest dude on the island.
Yeah.
So I almost expected that from him, but I almost wonder if that had anything to do with it, of he knew it could be happening, where the other people were completely blindsided. Because I
That's
think
true.
I would have a little bit of a different reaction there too.
I think that probably helped having Sam tell him that the possibility was there, but I also just kind of knowing what we know about Saul, like we've seen plenty of things happen in the season that would give him a reason to get really upset. I'm looking back at like his time with Rome and how Rome was navigating his relationship with Saul and how level-headed and composed Saul was. I don't see Saul being any sort of bitter by being blindsided. I think he would have just taken it in stride and been like, well, I didn't know that was happening. Great job. See you on the other side.
Yeah.
He's one that I'm really curious to see on social media because he seems incredibly wise. And not to get way off topic, but with as like divisive as society is these days, especially around politics and all kinds of stuff, I hope he has a really good social media presence because he could be kind of I don't know, just a positive person that we need right now.
Yeah. No, he was one of my favorites, honestly, this season, and I was really sad to see him go because, I mean, just everything he went through, like Brandon said, with Rome and his thought process behind things, and I don't know, I just really liked him.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see him make the jury. I would have been sad to see him go either way, but I'm happy that he made the jury at least. Well, let's hop into the challenge, and I have got some mixed feelings about how all this is set up, and I'm sure Brandon does too. um, but and we haven't necessarily laid out the challenges in past episodes this season, but I kind of want to because there was a little bit of there were several different dynamics to this challenge. So, Tree Mail comes. They basically say you're pairing up with another person. You get to pick, and then only one person is going to win Immunity Idol. So, on one hand, I like that they let the players pick, like who they were teaming up with instead of drawing rocks and making it random, because then there was a little bit of like social strategy there. And then so there's 5 duos. The first is it the first 3 that complete it
Yeah.
move on.
Hmm.
And so the last 2 teams to finish that first stage lose their vote. So there's 4 people that lose their vote for next tribal. Then the next challenge, the first 2 to make, or the next area of the challenge, the first 2 teams to make it through go on to the finale, and those 4 all win reward, and that was food, like BLTs, I think.
Some of the best looking BLTs I've ever seen.
Yeah, it did look like a good one. And then so that middle team doesn't get reward, doesn't get a chance for immunity, but they also don't lose their vote. And that the first, I guess the first 4 that got out was who was it? Rachel, Caroline, Andy, and Sam.
Hmm.
And then Sue and Genevieve didn't have anything. And then the final 4 was Saul, Teeny, Gabe, and Kyle. And Saul and Teeny dropped right away, and then it was down to Kyle and Gabe ends up winning. So lots of different things there. I've talked for a minute, so before I give you my like full thoughts on everything, I'll let one of you guys go.
Well, I think I definitely think it's important to mention that the 4 that lost their vote due to being last on that first set of challenges had the chance to go out and earn their vote back. And so they would go out on a journey. They weren't sure what that looked like until they got there. And so with that journey, basically it was a game of, in a way, of Jenga, where they had these metal cards that they had to stack up, and the first person for it to like knock over on their turn lost their vote, but everybody else got theirs back. So yes, at the beginning of the challenge, 4 people lose their vote sounds a lot worse when it's really only just 1. So that made it feel better for me, because I was like, there's 10 people here, 4 people without their vote. Like, that's almost half. Like, that's just insane to me, especially this late in the game. And if that was going to be the way it stayed, I was going to be a little upset. So I'm glad it was only just one person, but
Yeah, pretty much that's pretty much what I felt like when I heard initially that there was going to be 4 people that lost their vote. I was kind of doing the math, and I'm like, 40% of the rest just don't have a vote. That feels messy to me, but I liked the challenge that they did for on the journey to earn their vote back. I thought
Mhm.
I don't think we've seen anything like that. It was basically, I think Sam described it perfectly, reverse Jenga,
Yeah.
and just something new, something fun. And um I loved seeing Caroline just like still have the time of her life even though she lost. Um she's a super fun player to watch, but honestly overall like I don't want to get on a soapbox again like last week. Like I don't love the idea of players losing their vote. Obviously, your vote is your voice, and far too often in the new era, players are losing their votes with really through no fault of their own outside of they just didn't win a challenge or got picked to go on a journey that they didn't ask to go on. So, I just wish that they'd stop doing that, but they're not going to, so I'm just going to embrace it.
I'm with you, but if somebody's going to lose their vote, this is the way that I would want it to happen. Um, and not just, okay, last one to fall off this ladder, like, or hang in front or drop the bucket or whatever it may be. It's not just that, but now you have to go and compete again. And it's not necessarily a puzzle where all of them could have lost their vote. It was basically set up where 3 of them were going to keep their vote and 1 wasn't. Um, so if they're going to keep that up, this is the way I would like that to continue rather than, oh, hey, you got selected for this challenge or for the journey, and then you have the puzzle that you may not even get, and it's like just total random luck. Um, so I like that. I like how it was split up so well, and part of that was due to them being able to choose their own like duo. Um, but I almost like how it kind of split the tribes into or split the whole group into 3 different groups. It kind of forced some chaos, and it forces people to talk to other people and kind of make moves, because I don't know how close Genevieve and Sue were up until that moment. And that kind of started the whole thing. Now, Genevieve may have talked to anybody about that, but I don't know. That was a dynamic that we haven't really seen them talk much together. At least I don't remember it. And so some of the aspects of the challenges and kind of splitting people up based on who wins, who loses, I kind of liked, and forces people to step out of their like kind of comfort zone.
Yeah. I liked the players' reasoning for who they picked for their duo. Like Sam was like, I'll pick Andy, I'll team up with him, but I feel like I can beat him in the end. That was kind of the same thing with Kyle and Gabe. Um, so I liked some of the reasoning behind that.
Yeah.
definitely a little
And I
bit more
like,
strategic there.
yeah. And I like the players having control of that because they easily could
Absolutely.
have done draw rocks and go to
Yeah.
your team. So
And how often have we seen, hey, we're going to do a random draw, and then you don't see the draw and they just end up standing next to somebody? It's like, okay, here you actually got to see people like all sit around like, hey, I'll team up with you like immediately. And so I think that's always telling too. But um, real quick before I forget, going back to last tribal where we talked about Rachel and wondering if that was actually how she played the shot in the dark and if that was intentional, and 100% was intentional that way. And I read a couple articles this week where people were talking about how kind of what we said last week, that that is a game changing move, and I think people will definitely use that shot in the dark in the future. So I was really curious to see if she would talk about that, and she did. So that was awesome.
I felt super validated for like us when she said that, and like because we spent a good amount of time talking about it last week. I was like, that's cool that's we weren't just kind of talking out of our butts, and that's exactly what she was doing. So
Well, I'm pretty sure Jeff even came out and said that the way she played that is going to change how shot in the dark is used. So for him even to come out and say it and acknowledge that, not just fans of the game and all that, brilliant way to play it. And kudos to her for coming, like thinking of that and doing that.
Absolutely. Let's see here. What else did I have?
I mean, we got to talk about the pre-tribal council chaos.
Yeah, and that man, that it's almost hard to describe, because it went from, let's see, the winning try or the winning group of four that went to reward came back and initially was like, yeah, let's just go Sam. Like, it's an easy vote. That's what we wanted to do. Or one of the people we talked about getting out last week. We all worked together before. Let's do it again. And Genevieve obviously had other plans, threw Saul out there. And then, like we talked about, how Sam kind of weaseled his way in there and found it out, told Saul. And then from then on, it was like, I have no idea what's about to happen. There were, what, 4 names thrown out again this week. So Saul, Sam, Sue, and Kyle. And I was really surprised that more people weren't talking about Kyle since he lost and got second. I mean, he was right there and winning again, but I don't know. That was crazy. And I liked also at Tribal where it was live, but as people were talking to Jeff and people, like, they didn't get up until the very end, and it was incredibly entertaining. So I don't know. It's hard to describe the chaos there, but it felt like it went on forever. Like, it was getting dark on the beach.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the way that they production and the editors set that up, it felt like super urgent and kind of ominous, and it was just really well done. And then they carried that same intensity into the tribal council, the way that they presented it to us. I think one of the best pre-tribal / tribals combinations I've seen in a while. To your point about the 4 players being mentioned, last week there were 6 names mentioned. This week there were 4. I love that everybody's playing, and like there's no alliances. There's no, like, outside of the Tuku, like Gabe, Caroline, Sue, everybody's willing to move each week. I love that. I think that's bringing more names up and just kind of keeping me guessing. I don't know if that's how you guys are. Like, I'm for the second week in a row, I'm like, I have no clue what's going to happen.
Yeah, I was going
I
into
love it.
tribal. I don't know who's going home. And it makes it more fun to watch and more enjoyable and keeps your attention more. I think with obviously in seasons past where it's just been one person, you're like, oh, like we know what's happening, and I think for viewership, it's so much better.
Well, and there's a because the production has done a good job of keeping us guessing in seasons past, but to the point where it felt like they were leaving out information that would have 100% told us where everybody was going. And this season, more than ever, it's like nobody has any idea until they get to tribal. And it is, I don't know, it was crazy. And you could even tell, there were a couple times where they just took off and started talking, and like the people behind the camera, you could tell them were kind of scrambling to catch up, to catch conversations. And it was, I don't know, it was a blast. I do have a theory, and they probably do it this way on purpose, but if you noticed, Genevieve was talking about like right before tribal, her little confessional on the beach was like super bright. Like it was earlier in the day, and all of that happened so late. I feel like that basically told us, okay, there's no way that Genevieve was going home. And obviously she wasn't even a name that was mentioned, but that's something that I'm going to start watching. Like if that would give away any information as far as what happens at tribal, because there's no way that she could have known all of that and that confessional been that day. So that basically tells me that Genevieve made it to the next day, because that confessional was all from after tribal. Like it had to have been, based on the timing of everything.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've ever even paid attention to like time of day or anything on that. So definitely something I'll have to pay attention to more.
I think what what's wild about this tribal council is you had all the chaos of like it's Sue, no, it's Saul, it's Sam, and then they read the votes. And I honestly, when the tribal was live, I was like, oh, Saul's safe tonight. Like I was kind of like, okay, they're not voting Saul. So really good again misdirection by the editing to kind of keep us guessing again. But I'm I was I was shocked that it was unanimous for Saul. Like in all the chaos, the Genevieve's original plan like triumphed over all the noise. So I think that's amazing that you had Genevieve, Sue, Andy, and at least Kyle. Caroline obviously couldn't vote, but the four of them stuck to it. Obviously, a couple more joined in, but it's amazing that the original plan was what ended up happening after everything that happened.
Yeah, I was honestly shocked that it was Saul. I was thinking it was going to be Sue, and after they showed who voted for everybody, uh, I was shocked that Teeny even voted for Saul outside of obviously not wanting to be outside of the majority.
She tweeted
But
that like that was her reasoning. What? Because
yeah,
I guess she was getting a hard time for turning on Saul. She's like, literally everybody was voting Saul. I didn't want to be the only person that didn't. So
and she would have been not stupid, but it wouldn't have been the correct move not to vote with the majority there. So I understand that, but it was I was really surprised that it was unanimous there for Saul.
Yeah, I was too. And it's been like that a couple weeks. Like obviously not last week because everything was split, but I don't know. It's been impressive how they've all kind of come together, and every person has kind of played their part in that. I think Gabe played a huge part in this, and obviously he was safe, so he could a little bit, but man, he was holding everybody steady. He was like, "I've got you. We're 100%. Stay the same course." Like he wasn't freaking out at all. Neither was Sue, and I was kind of surprised by that. At one point, I thought Sue may have heard Saul say her name, and I thought, "Oh man, she's gonna play her idol, and then Saul's gonna go home." And sure enough, he went home anyway. But she didn't play it. Like Sue and Gabe seem like, and Caroline too, but she obviously couldn't vote. But those three are rock solid. Um, so they may be the alliance to reckon with.
so I want to go back to Sam kind of being the one that created the chaos at camp before the vote. Do you think he ever had any intention of actually going after Kyle or Sue, or do you think that he did that just for the sake of causing chaos and uncertainty around camp?
Ooh, um, that's a really good question, and this is
Or
a cop out answer, but I think it's a little bit of both. I think because he even said at one point, it's time to cause chaos because I don't want it to be me, and I've got a better shot of it not being me if there's chaos. But I do think he had like some intention of if he could get the numbers, let's go sue, because his reason behind it was incredibly smart. She is the most insulated person in the game. So I don't think it was a bad move, but I don't know. I think it's a little bit of both there.
Yeah, I think for me, I think yes, the chaos is good to keep the votes off of you and all of that, but I think his reasoning behind Sue, um, it was spot on, and to be able to break up that trio, I think would have been genius because I think that, like Blake said, they are the kind of the trio to beat right now, and I think they if they could have pulled it off, it could have changed the outcome of the game quite a bit. But
What do you think, Brandon?
I think if he would have been able to corral the numbers, then he absolutely would have changed who was going home tonight. Because I think he felt, number one, after what happened with Sierra getting voted out, I think he felt like, oh, I don't have any control anymore, and I need to kind of flip the game on its head. This is how I think I can do it. And on the other hand, if he can't get the numbers, like he has the contingency plan of just going and voting out Saul. So no harm, no foul.
But there is risk associated with it, right? I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but he may have burned a little bit of a bridge there with Rachel. And I mean, she didn't
That's
come
true.
out and offer up the information, but he definitely got it out of her and exploited it, and she's going to figure it out. So it's not all upside for him. There's definitely some downside.
do you think the downside is going to be more on him or more on her? Because she was the one that gave that out, and Genevieve was like, I don't know.
I think both.
Exactly. I think both. I think Rachel, I don't know if she was told not to tell Sam, but I think when you're in a position like hers, like you're clearly on the rocks, you got to be careful who you tell. But I think it's worse for Sam because Sam literally was like, don't worry, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to blow your game up. And then immediately goes and blows her game up. So he's going to have to, well, you know what? Saul went home, so maybe not. I don't know how much Rachel knows.
I think at one point somebody said something to her, something along the lines that Sam told you that, and so I think that's out there for her to know.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Yeah, whether or not it'll matter, that's remained to be seen. But
I think whether or not Rachel will even try to do anything about it, because to this point, like Rachel's not really been the one to stand up and be the one to initiate a move. So
yeah,
maybe this is enough to do that. Like, okay, I clearly can't trust Sam, but to this point, like she hasn't had control. She's just been a number. And I think she's still going to be a number unless next week she just is like, I'm taking matters into my own hands. But
yeah,
next week is the saga of Sue hating Kyle. So I don't know what we'll see.
Which I do not understand why she hates him so much other than he wrote her name down one time.
I will be disappointed next week because they teased that. Like that beef is coming back up. I'll be disappointed if there's not more to the story. If it's solely he wrote my name down on day 2, I'll be kind of annoyed. And like that is just some weird gameplay.
Yeah. As insulated as Sue is, how do you guys feel about her shot as far like her potential of winning the game. And I don't necessarily want to go through everybody this week, but I am really curious where you think Sue is, because when I look at Sue's game versus Genevieve's game, there's no comparison. But Sue seems to have better like ride or die allies next to her than Genevieve does. But will that be enough? I'm curious to hear what you guys think.
I don't think it'll be enough. I think at the end of the day, if you're sitting in the final three, you've got to be able to speak to moves that you made. Yes, if you have an alliance and have been able to orchestrate a lot of those moves with that alliance, I just I just don't think that she's had the ideas and come up with those outside of maybe trying to get Kyle out or something like that. But it's not been anything like Genevieve, where she's come up with a Saul plan, put all of it together, several other things that she's done. I just I just don't think she would have a chance. And maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but I just don't think she would.
I I agree with you, Logan. I think I mean she's won an immunity challenge, which again, how much weight does that carry? Like even like Kyle tonight, like they had their opportunity to go after him and they didn't. So like it kind of again squashes the whole like challenge beasts are,
Mhm.
you know, a threat. But she's kind of riding the coattails of Gabe and Caroline. So like I don't know if she got into a position where she was in the final three. I don't really know unless we're missing something along the way how she would be able to explain her thought process and how a move was hers. Like
Yeah.
what did you do in the game other than go along with what Gabe and Caroline did? And I think she might have a little bit of trouble convincing the jury that she, you know, had big moves of her own and she came up with a plan out of her own brain.
Right.
So obviously there's still time, but to this point I don't see how she can win unless the other final two that happen to be with her just didn't have good jury management, or the jury's just bitter with them. Like that could play in Sue's favor, because I think she has Gabe's vote. I think she would have Caroline's vote. She could, you know, there might be other players that she has votes for, but like if Sam's in the end with her, like does Sam have Andy's vote? I don't think so. He has Sierra's vote, but like then you kind of go through the line and that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, there is still a lot of game left to play. And I forgot, but I mean, she still has her idol. And so, I mean, depending on how she uses that, if she saves herself, cool. If she uses it to save herself and blindside somebody else, even better. If she, I mean, there's so many different ways that having an idol can kind of catapult your game forward. But I'm with you. I don't know that I see her, and this is not a knock on her, but I don't see her having the Genevieve level of gameplay to propel her game that much further to make her, a front runner. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I hope, you said Genevieve, I hope that she gets a chance to plead her case.
Mhm.
I'm a little worried for her. I think people are going to start to find her out, but I would love to hear her explain her game and people just have like aha light bulb moments, like, oh, like that. I hope that we get to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
She has played I think the best game so far, and people with people not seeing that so far, it's really impressive. So
Yeah. And right now, the only person that is playing almost to that level, not quite, but that I think would be able to make a case for her game would be Caroline. Like those two right now, um, I definitely think Genevieve has had the better game moves, the flashier moves, um, and been in control a little bit more than Caroline. But Caroline's pretty sharp, and I think she could sway things her way pretty easily.
Yeah, she just has to get past, like, obviously Tuku having to cannibalize themselves and then not having a vote tonight, um, and being able to get back and have a voice and some control in the game. I think it's hard because we obviously didn't hear from her much tonight. I think it's hard to like try to navigate and sway a vote when you can't vote yourself. So
Absolutely.
like to see her jump back in and be a focal point next week. But I still think she's on a great track to be able to win the game.
Do you think it's time for another advantage or another idol to shake things up? Because right now we've got Rachel that has one and Sue that has one.
I could see a maybe like an advantage or something, but I don't know about an idol. Because at this point, not necessarily guaranteed to, but if they don't play those, you could potentially have three people be safe on that final option. What is that? Final five.
Yeah, the final five.
So I think that would be almost just too much. I think an advantage of steal a vote or I don't know,
An
something
extra
along those.
vote. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I think would be I could see that being a positive thing, but I don't think another idol unless one's played would be a good thing.
I
Yeah.
think the most likely thing, I don't actually know if any other advantage is going to show up, but I think the most likely thing is a steal a vote. And the reason I say that is because, um, correct me if I'm wrong, but whenever Saul got the advantage at the reward that he gave to Rachel, it was a choice between safety without power and steal a vote. So,
Gotcha.
like, there's technically a steal a vote out there somewhere that they could potentially throw in. So, I think if there's going to be anything else that happens as far as twists go, a steal a vote seems the most likely to me.
Yeah. I just think with 9 people left, there's still so much gameplay to happen, and I would be shocked if an idol is not used in the next 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and if there's not another twist of some sort. But maybe the twists are going to continue to be, something like we saw today, whether it's a lose a vote or what, I don't know. But I think we'll continue to see some sort of twist to the game because just 9 more weeks or 9 more people to get out, 8 more before we have a winner. It's a long time to go without anything from Survivor, especially the way they've been doing it this season. So I don't know.
I had a small sliver of hope that Rachel would play her idol on Saul
Mm.
since he saved her
Mm,
and she turned around and do the favor and save him and then Sue go home. I had a small sliver of hope that that would happen. Obviously didn't, but that thought came across. I was like, "Oh man, that would be awesome and a
let,
really good move to
all
speak
right.
to at the end."
Let's kind of play that scenario out. So let's say that happens. So 9 votes for Saul, 1 vote for Sue, or 8 votes for Saul, 1 vote for Sue, because Caroline didn't have a vote.
Right.
Rachel plays her idol for Saul, saves Saul, sends Sue home. Does that immediately put Rachel in a bad position because she vetoed not only her own vote but an entire unanimous tribe's vote? Or do some of the people go back and go, well, we were kind of talking about getting Sue out anyway, and this works, and we flushed an idol. So,
Yeah. I think that's exactly what would happen. There were too many people that were it felt like incredibly close to voting with Saul to voting for Saul. And I think Teeny would absolutely love it. She was sad to see Saul go. I think Sam would have been totally cool either way. So now you have Rachel Sam, Saul, and Teeny. So there's 4 with 9 left. Like the odds of one other person being okay with that, I think would be totally fine. Now, selfishly, why are you going to play your idol for somebody else when there's no downside to you voting out Saul? Like, yeah, he helped you out, but you still have the idol. So, like,
Yeah.
You don't play to help other people win the game for sure.
right.
So,
Unless you just felt that much of a connection to like that alliance, and clearly she didn't. That was the first and really only interaction that they had. So, I don't know.
And my thought process there of her saving him was to have some numbers there, because clearly the other set of people wanting to vote for Saul the originally have the numbers and would have clearly been an easy choice, especially if Caroline had her vote. Like, that wouldn't have been a question of having to pull one other person in. So if they had the numbers, so if she would have been able to keep Saul and keep some other numbers outside of that group, that's why I would say she would have done it. But
and I think I forgot that there's some numbers going back to camp in Rachel's favor, like you said, Saul and Teeny, Sam probably wouldn't care, and obviously I think Andy is, I think, a natural swing vote. Like, he's like just kind of excited, I think, to be part of the conversation. And he comes up with plans on his own too. But I think you're right that they could have easily gotten a fifth and went back with the majority.
Yeah, this is the fun part of Survivor for me. Is so much of the game is knowing when to sit back and let things happen and when to jump up and take control of your own game. And that could have very easily been a move that propelled Rachel's game forward. Now, selfishly, again, playing the idol for somebody else and then knowing that you don't have that as safety next week, but that would have totally flipped the game on its head, potentially. Go back with 5, having the majority, and now the game is completely different, and you're kind of the ringleader of it. People are going to look to you for answers, and you had the opportunity to take control of your game and you didn't. And that's the part of Survivor that it's like, she may still make it to the end, but will it be enough to just get to the end? I mean, we see that all the time where people get to the end and don't get a single vote. It's like, getting to the end is great, but if you don't win, what's the point?
And I mean, I guess even thinking about it even further, in the sense of putting a target on her back or anything like that, with if she were to play the idol for Saul, it could have been just as simple as her going up to him before they left for tribal and saying, "Hey, I have this. I'm giving it to you. Play it tonight." So people didn't have, because nobody knows she has the idol.
True.
So she could have.
But we didn't know what that was going to look like. I don't think anybody knew who they were voting for
Yeah,
but yeah, absolutely.
but I don't know.
It's
It's definitely, like you said, very. It separates the really good players from the average players, of knowing when to play and when to sit back and watch and make moves, go along with the moves. It's definitely separates them out quite a bit.
And not just making moves to make a move, but taking advantage of the opportunities when you have them to make a move. Like
Mhm.
Caroline, I think, is a great example of, she's kind of sitting back and not doing a ton, but she hasn't had like the opportunity that she's just missed and dropped the ball on. So, like, that is a really good example of when to sit back and kind of let the game unfold around you. And it was easy this week for her since she didn't have a vote. Like, that's kind of an easy way to do it. But I don't know. It's all about seizing those opportunities. What I I wrote it down, just one part of it, but I was curious if you guys caught exactly what the quote was. But they were talking about figuring out like the solid plans and what is just noise. And I thought that was a really good like explanation for what was happening tonight. Sorting, I forget how they worded it. I don't know if you remember, but essentially sorting it.
Caroline,
Yeah.
I
What
don't
did she say
remember. I don't
exactly?
remember exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of what you just said.
Like
If that
figuring out
helps.
what's a
Yeah.
solid plan and what's just noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
'Cause-
It was a really good analogy and like just a good way to think about it. Like, okay, you've got to figure out because people are going to talk no matter what, but figuring out which is legit and what's just background noise to kind of drown out. So
Well, we did Survivor of the Week already. Who kind of, I mean, and I think this goes in a line with, but like stock up, stock down. Do we want to touch on that, or do we really have anything else?
um yeah, I mean I don't know. I don't know if anybody's stock like really went down for me this week. I mean, like Rachel, I don't think is in a better position than she was. Sam, maybe, but he's still kind of towards the bottom. I don't know.
I think
Nobody,
that
no,
it's
nobody's really stock moved much.
I
Yeah.
would agree with that. Like maybe you could make the argument that Teeny's stock went down, but
She still
not really
didn't.
because nobody's really
Yeah.
looking at her. It's just we want to go after Saul. Um. So yeah, it's kind of status quo
Yeah.
week.
Teeny seems really good on the social side where everybody seems to really like her. And she's also really good at playing dumb. And not in a way of like that I think she's actually a little dumb, but I forget who it was that was it Gabe that said something to her like, "Oh, are we voting Saul?" and or whatever it was, and she's like,
Mhm.
"Wait, how? Who told you about that? I didn't know about that." I'm like, "Yes, you did," but played it off super well, and I don't know. She's kind of impressed me with how she's kind of handled receiving information.
I'd agree. That's my winner pick.
Did anybody else's stock go down at all, or up like major?
No, I mean, I think Genevieve, she was already kind of up there. So with the move, I think that just elevates her more. I wouldn't say it increased it a ton because she's, I think, up at the top of the list anyways. But no, I agree with you guys. It didn't really change. This week didn't really change or have anybody go down.
Is there, Brandon? You might know this. I wonder if there's any like betting sites out there that would have like whose odds, like who has the best odds of winning the game right now. And that kind of leads me down a thought of I'm a little scared to look that up because I don't want any spoilers. But can we talk for a minute? Has there ever been a leak on who wins the game before it actually comes out?
I don't think there has been, but I think the NDAs that they sign are so like tight and strict that if they ever spoiled it, then it would be like I don't know, like really bad. I was gonna try to think of something crazy to say, but nothing came to mind. But
Well, and
and
the
for the most part, up until the new era, really, they didn't even read the winner vote until like everybody found out at the same time, the audience
right.
and the players. So, but I want to give you some betting odds because I found some.
Okay.
So this is North Carolina sports betting. So Rachel is the favorite.
Really?
At plus 700. Sam is plus 900. Andy's plus 1,000, and then Gabe's 4th. So Rachel, Sam, and Andy are the top 3 favorites to win.
What about where's Genevieve?
Let me
Is
see.
she on there?
Yeah, she is. Oh, hold on a second. Wow, that bamboozled me. Let me just restart. That's kind of annoying. So I didn't click on the article and it was only showing like some of them, but here we go. As of November 7th, Teeny, Genevieve, Caroline are all tied at plus 600 to win, and then Rachel at plus 700, Sam at plus 900.
Okay.
Teeny, that surprises me. But okay.
That that's from, again, betcarolina.com. I don't know anything about that
Mhm.
site. Obviously, we live in Missouri, so
Hmm.
why would I? But
Interesting.
All right. And obviously we've made our winner picks, but if you had to put money on somebody to win based on what we know now, not who you want to win, but who you think is actually going to win, who would you say?
for me, that's tough because I have 3 names that just shot to the front of my mind.
Okay.
Um, I I would put I'd put money on Andy. I'd put
Whoa.
Yeah, he's plus 1,000 right now. I'd put some money on him
Okay.
to win. Just because I think he's the he has the redemption arc going for him this season. Like season 1 or episode 1, he looked like he was about to quit, right? And we were like, oh no, here we go again, another one of these players. But just episode by episode, he has just gotten better and more likable, and you see where his game's going, and he's been part of moves, and he has a story to tell. Maybe he's been a little bit reckless with jury management, but I think just he has just a great, almost kind of, maybe not as much, but almost like an Emily season 45 story where we're like, oh gosh. And then we just loved her by the end of it.
I like it.
Logan, based on those odds, who would you put money on?
For me, I think it would have to be either Caroline or Genevieve. I mean, just based on who I think is going to win it. I know they don't. I mean, wouldn't have as big of a payout there, but I think Caroline or Genevieve.
I'm actually going to go completely off the wall, and I would put money on Gabe. I like how
Plus
inv-
1250.
yeah,
I think
plus
he should be higher odds.
I think he should too, but I'll be curious to look that up this week and see if odds change. But man, I don't know if it's Gabe and Genevieve and Caroline in the final 3. Oh man, like what a fun final 3 that would be. Because I think Gabe could be pretty persuasive in how in communicating what he did in his game. So I don't know that. Yeah, I'd probably put money on Gabe.
What do you think of Kyle plus 2,000 with the lowest odds?
I don't know if that really surprises me because I don't think he's been a player to be like super strategic or making moves. He's obviously won challenges and all, but he outside of that there hasn't been a ton there for him.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. And I know, Brandon, you made a good point earlier that he hasn't really had to play super strategically because he has been safe, but I don't know. I he doesn't seem as like strategic as Genevieve, and we may be giving her way too much credit. It's still incredibly early for to be making that many big moves that early, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm not surprised that Kyle's at the bottom because and we've made a good point before that Jury doesn't really care about how many immunity challenges you win. Like, that is not what's going to win him the game. And that seems to be all he really has right now, up until this point. Still a lot of game left, but there, based on the preview for next week, is it going to come down to Sue and Kyle, or do we think it's going to be between Kyle and somebody else?
I think it's going to be between Sue and Kyle.
I agree.
I mean, with her already coming up this week, people talking about Kyle, especially if neither of them win immunity challenge, it'll definitely be interesting to see how it goes. But I definitely think it's going to come down between those two.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'll be a fun one. So, well, yeah, make sure you tune in next week. We'll have another episode out next Friday. And oh, Brandon, do we have any mail?
No mail.
Dang it. Somebody email us, please.
Yep. The Merge Feast podcast at gmail.com. Send us an email, please.
I think I said before, but one of these weeks coming up, I want to talk about just some other ideas or twists that would be kind of cool to throw at Survivor or to see them implement in the game. So I would love to hear people's thoughts on twists or challenges or idols or advantages, anything like that. So anything you want to send it over, and we will take a look and give you a little shout out and have a conversation about it. All right. Well, that is all that we have this week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and go ahead and say goodbye, Logan.
Goodbye, Logan.